Hello adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. It seems like everywhere we go lately we have been encountering weird weather. When we were in the Southwest, there were fires and lots of wind. I decided that I was going to come to the Midwest, and now there's been lots and lots of rain. In fact, there has been so much rain that where I am currently, just outside of Branson, Missouri, there is like this rush of water that is currently pulsing through the floodgates because they are trying to move water safely downstream so it doesn't affect all the communities. I am at Table Rock Lake, and today, look what I discovered. Now, the more and more that we travel, the more we encounter strange kinds of weather, whether it be the existing winds that are in the area just picking up and creating all sorts of chaos through tornadoes, the rains coming down and making the waters swell up into floods, or fires. And as nomads, we are in the midst of all of it as we travel across the country in our tiny little homes on wheels. So I thought today this was a great time for us to discuss what we can do to stay on top of that and to know what's going on around us a little bit better. Being a nomad, a lot of times we are disconnected from what is going on, but sometimes it pays to tune in just a little bit. And it isn't just the crazy wind or the crazy fires or the crazy waters. It's also the heat. The heat can really do a number on us as we live in our tiny spaces. So today we're going to be discussing how you guys can prepare for time on the road and be up on what is going on around us so that we all stay safe. Now, to get this started, let's just check our weather. Currently, this is where we are. We're in Hollister. It's 86 degrees with a high of 90. But look at this. Rain is forecasted on both Friday and Saturday. So remember what we just said about how it had already been raining and there was already tons of water coming through? Well, in times like this, people around you actually have already done the hard work for you. They're already on top of this because they want to protect people and also protect the parks that we enjoy going to. When I came to this state park, they mentioned that the marina just over this ridge was closed because of flooding, and so that just told me, okay, as much as I'd like to go to the marina, I won't be doing that. Also, they did mention that several of the trails around me are closed as a result of, you guessed it, flooding. But with that said, there's going to be 2 additional days of rain coming up. So what are they doing to prevent me as an individual from having an issue? Well, they opened up those floodgates, and because of that, that's going to help push that water. But now the burden of responsibility falls on me as a nomad to make sure that I stay up with what's going on while here in the park. That means that we're going to be checking in with the daily on the ranger station posts. We're also going to be looking around for any signs that might be around the park, and we're definitely going to do our due diligence of making sure that we're inspecting our campsite. If we see water start to encroach, guess what, guys? We're hitting the road and we're moving on. But while you're in your van, there's actually something that you can do no matter where you are and no matter what kind of weather that you might encounter. This is something I do every time I pull into a new area. I just simply turn on my radio and then I do a scan of all of the stations, and I try to find the ones that seem to be doing news updates every so often. Now, this can take a couple of minutes, but at the same time, it can mean all the difference between you being safe and you being sorry. But then you can do something else straight from your cell phone. If you have service, this is a great way for you to learn a little bit more about your area. Just go to Google and then Google the area that you're in and news station. Now, by doing this, you will have access to the best news in your area. So here is just a news service, but this looks like it's actually going to be potentially some of the news broadcast stations that are in the area. So what you can do from there is actually pick one of these and stay up to date on all of the weather in the area. Now, I always suggest doing this also because if there are any kind of other situations that happen, you will know before you end up in a bad situation. So if there are any road closures, if there are any kinds of crazy things that are going on, usually it will be broadcast on their local news station. Now, if you don't have service, it's going to be a little bit of a different story. You're going to need to find a way to keep updated, and in those cases, I recommend a hand crank radio. Hand crank radios don't require your vehicle to have a great signal. They don't require your phone to have a great signal, and you can crank them up without having to use any power. So if you happen to be in a pinch where you are completely without, can't get your solar to work, whatever the case is, you can still find out what's going on around you. Also, it is good to, if possible, have some form of CB or shortwave radio so that you can communicate with the outside world if this guy right here is not working. That's super important, especially when you're in a lot more of a remote space, because let's just face it, sometimes out in the boonies, you need to communicate with somebody because you have a terrible thing happen, and weather can be that. So say you take your van or your RV out to a campsite that is in a more remote place that might not have rangers like this state park that I'm staying at currently. And suddenly you are stuck in a really bad situation where you need to evacuate. What do you do then? Now, in these situations, knowing how to get out and how to safely navigate out is huge. So I definitely encourage you to look up the grouping of land that you are on. For example, if you are on Forest Service land, look up the Forest Service specific to that area, not just the broad one, specific to that area. If you're on Bureau of Land Management land or BLM land, then do that as well. What they're going to be doing is giving you updates as to if there are closures, if there are any kinds of danger, and if there are any roads that will need to be avoided in your process. Now, on my recent trip to the Southwest, my friend Riley was actually stuck in an area that was evacuating from the fires, and she said it was pretty scary, so I can only imagine what I would have gone through in my head if I would have been her. First and foremost, I would have checked those sites that I just told you about. I would have tuned through the radio, and I would have looked to see if I could find some kind of local television station. This would tell me if there is a specific thing that I needed to know in way of evacuating. Then, if I couldn't find any information there, I would bust out this guy. This little road atlas right here goes with me everywhere that I go, and I have a lot of reasons for bringing it with me. Sometimes it's easy as I just don't know where I'm going and I need to figure it out, but other times, in case of a disaster, having a road atlas is super handy because you can literally just open it up, find the area that you're in, and know every single outlet to the place that you currently are. For example, if I were right here where I currently am in Missouri, I could just keep turning until I get all the way over to the Missouri area, which looks like it starts right here. And then I could find the area that I am in. And in some cases, they have a more concentrated map. Now, I also suggest picking up at the tourism depots the more specific area maps for the area you're exploring, because you will have a little bit better overall understanding. But just sometimes having a kind of good overview can be helpful. If you can, pick up a state-by-state road atlas whenever you enter into a new state. Sure, they take up a little bit of room, and sure, you could access that also on your phone, but unless you remember to download the offline map on Google, it's not going to do you any good. So sometimes just physically having a paper map can really help you out in those situations. I know that whenever I have been in certain areas and they've had snowstorms that closed down roads, that was the best way for me to navigate around the snowstorm and be safe, so that I didn't end up going down the mountain in the side of my van in not such a happy way. If you happen to be a person who can remember things, then yeah, go ahead, download the offline map on Google and just throw it off into your files folder, and then when you need it for a rainy day, pull it up, expand it, and there you go. But I swear by paper maps. Just telling you, it does come in handy, and you'd be surprised how many times that you would rather have one than not. And worst case scenario, you keep it, and then the next time you come through the state, you already have it for the next journey. Okay, so now we've talked about how you can be proactive at your campsite and how you can also kind of come into a community and already be prepared just in case. But what about signals, sirens, things like that? Most places in Tornado Alley actually have sirens that go off in communities. However, if you're more removed, you won't be hearing those. So again, it's very important to find your local broadcast, because you need to be able to watch that little hovering mass to see if it's going to fork its way toward you. Because if it does, you need to know what to do to take cover. Now, I have done a video about what to do if you are in a van during a tornado, so I do recommend you guys go watch that. I was really surprised by the information that I was given from the Texas Department of Public Safety as to how to stay safer in a van specifically. I was so wrong in what my assumptions were. So if you are going to an area that has a specific kind of weather, consult your local DPS. They have a lot of really good knowledge just so that you can be prepared. Each part of the country has different stuff going on. For example, if you're going into an area that might have torrential downpours and flooding, they might urge you to do a few things in your vehicle that I might not know because I haven't been there. But that is a good idea. Call the source directly. Say, hey, coming to your state, any suggestions? They are very helpful. They really, really are. Last but not least, just be smart. I know it sounds silly. It sounds really generic, but be smart. If you see that there is a warning, don't drive in that direction. If you see that there is an advisory and you have to go in that direction, know which way to cut off before you get to the middle of the meat and potatoes of the problem. Try to avoid at all costs the really bad stuff that you already know exists. Sometimes you can't plan for something. For example, I am here, I was planning on being here, I had no idea that it was going to be this bad. I had seen a few reports, but nobody was really favoring on caution quite as much as I personally probably would have. But I went ahead and came, and I was proactive about finding out information, and I was able to purchase a campsite up a little bit higher as a result of that. So, think about those kinds of things. If you know you're in an area where it's raining, camp higher. If you know that you're in an area where there might be fires, potentially just move on down the road just a little bit. Those things are super unpredictable. And take caution by doing all of the other things that I've talked about. Make sure you always have a safety buddy who knows where you are just in case, so that if something does get kind of crazy, that they can let somebody know, hey, my friend is here. Drop a pin. That's super, super helpful. And although you might think it's absolutely silly, with bad weather, a pin could save your life. I hope today's video is a little bit more handy for you guys and helps you to figure out how to navigate your way around some of the crazy weather that we've been experiencing. Remember, heat waves happen, snow falls, fires burn, winds blow, and water, it can both fall and rise. Until next time, guys, be safe, be smart, and enjoy your time on the road in a responsible way. Bye, guys.